Lesufi is in great danger. The ANC only got 6 percentage points more than the DA. Lesufi is hanging by a thread. When we got to Gauteng and the negotiations, it was quite clear that Lesufi had no intention of following those framework agreements. He wanted, out of 14 positions, he wanted the ANC to take 11 when he had just only got 6 percentage points more than the DA. That was the proportionality clause out of the window. I said to him, we are here to share power proportionately according to the voters' wishes. We are not here to be co-opted by the ANC. We're not coming in here on your terms. Give and take.
Guys, so this battle for the Gauteng province between the DA, AfriForum, and Panyaza Lesufi of the ANC is still raging on. And Panyaza Lesufi actually has hit back, against AfriForum and the DA yesterday in a statement and a speech where he actually says, he tries to connote it in a kind of like a slave-like plantation scenario, where he says, try harder, masters. The slaves have woken up. So that's actually a response from Lesufi to the DA in light of this whole battle between both parties for the soul of Gauteng. But anyway, Helen Zille, as you can see in this video, still maintains that Lesufi is in grave danger, especially from a perspective of politics, a political danger. Is there something she's seeing that Panyaza Lesufi is not seeing? And from Panyaza Lesufi's response, is there something Lesufi is seeing that the DA and AfriForum aren't seeing in this whole thing? Let's understand from Helen Zille's perspective what she means when she says Lesufi is in grave danger. And I'll be back for some really interesting analysis.
What I'm really interested in hearing, because we've heard some of what Herman Mashabas had to say, and I think there's something to be learned from what's happened in Tshwane, is your perspective of what went wrong there. What, if you take us a step back and take us behind the scenes and give us your perspective of what went wrong in Tshwane and why it is where it is now. So, because we've heard what Herman has to say, he's on a junket, about it. And we've seen stuff on social media, but I don't think we've had a view from the perspective of the DA. And I think you're the best placed person to give us that. Can you take us behind the scene and give us some of that background information, context?
Tshwane was always going to be very difficult to turn around. There's no question about that. And we've put an enormous amount of effort into doing so. What went wrong is, A, we didn't get enough votes to have a secure majority at all. I think we had a single seat majority or 2-seat majority, and it's a very fragile base from which to work. So we need to do our very best to get more votes, and we will do our very best to get more votes, because that is the platform that gives us our strength, if we have any strength. Secondly, we were so unstable over so many years that governments kept changing hands, and the ANC put us under administration. I think it was in 2020 or somewhere around there, and we had just recovered the finances of the city. And of course, the minute the ANC put it under administration before the 2021 local government election, those finances were siphoned off. And that gave us a very, very difficult space from which to operate. And then let me be very honest. I run the DA's governance unit from inside the party. And the single key variable that determines whether our governments work is this little thing called leadership. People don't often identify it and don't often say that it's a key success factor, but it is the key success factor. We have spent millions from the governance unit's perspective on trying to fix our local governments. And the minute a strong, good leader with integrity and empathy gets into the position, things sort themselves out. So it's that capital L of leadership that is in such short supply. There is a big divide between how the ANC at national level and provincial level in Gauteng are facing things. And that vote did send a shockwave through the Government of National Unity, make no error. And it certainly made the DA sit back and think very hard about possible future options. I'm not going to speak about the Government of National Unity because it's not my lane. Suffice to say that Lesufi is in great danger. The ANC only got 6 percentage points more than the DA in the 2024 Gauteng election. Only 6 percentage points. Now that is a tiny margin. And again, I will say that if all the voters who voted for a whole slew of tiny little parties had understood the big picture and the importance of ensuring that a strong anchor tenant is at the heart of these coalitions and had voted for the DA, we would have been bigger than the ANC in Gauteng. And that would have changed the ball game completely. But Lesufi is hanging by a thread. Gauteng is a province of metros. It's got Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, and Mogale City. The DA is now officially the biggest party in South Africa's metros if people stop splitting the vote all over the place. And Lesufi knows that we've got, in 2 years, a local government election in which those four metros, although Mogale City isn't formally a metro, but those 4 metros could fall. And that's his political life on the line. So he's worried about the continued erosion of his base on both sides. And he's decided that he wants to hold on to all of the left-wing EFF's MK-style voters in the run-up to 2026. So that's what's going on. At national level, the president, I haven't spoken to the president, but the president, I think, Fikile Mbalula, David Mukura, and others see a major realignment of politics on the cards. They know that it's very unlikely that single parties are going to get above 50% in forthcoming elections, and that the whole critical thing will be coalitions and alignments. And they very much know, that putting the EFF or MK into government will be the death of good governance and the death of the economy. And if we think that we've got a crisis in unemployment now, we will have to wake up and see what it's going to be like if the EFF and MK come into office.
What do you mean that the GNU is not your lane? What does that mean?
Well, I run the Blue Machine, right? So I don't run the GNU, I run the Blue Machine, and my lane is the organization. I just want to see what he says. Somebody said voted, stop blaming the voters. Can you read that one? Because I'd like to stop blaming the voters. You backed the ANC to get Lesufi back into power. The ANC rolled you yet again. Okay, that's an important point from Indy L. Mm-hmm. Indy, we were going to have this government of national unity, and we were going to then have governments of provincial unity, and they were going to be negotiated within the framework of the statement of intent that we'd spent those 2 difficult weeks negotiating. When we got to Gauteng and the negotiations, it was quite clear that Lesufi had no intention of following those framework agreements. He wanted, out of 14 positions, he wanted the ANC to take 11 when he had just only got 6 percentage points more than the DA. That was the proportionality clause out of the window. He wouldn't tell us which portfolios he was planning to give us. And it turned out that what he was planning to give us was portfolios that had about 2% of the entire Gauteng budget. I said to him, we are here to share power proportionately according to the voters' wishes. We are not here to be co-opted by the ANC. We're not coming in here on your terms. Give and take does not mean that the DA gives and the ANC only takes. You got a very low percentage point in the election. I think if I recall, it was 34%. So you can't dictate the terms anymore. We're the biggest alternative. We're shortly behind you. And you negotiate with us in good faith. And you are transparent. Tell us, we've got to discuss which portfolios we take. And he was quite honest. He said to someone who I trust implicitly that Lesufi had said to them, we can't possibly give the DA education or health because they'll get in there, they'll run it properly, and they'll win votes. That's what he said. So that's why they have to keep us out of these portfolios. And I'm not blaming the voters. I'm just saying that people get the government they deserve. That's all. People get the government they voted for. So voters can't sit back and say, we spread our vote all over the place. The DA must now come and give us DA governance. We can only give you DA governance if we get enough votes. That's the only point I'm making. No blaming of voters, just a simple democratic fact.
Yeah, interesting, guys. What do you think? The whole issue with Shwana actually brought this whole thing to bear. And actually, that's actually interesting, now that Zille brings this out. And, the new mayor, actually, Moya, Dr. Nasifi Moya, if I got that pronunciation correctly, seems to be getting things on at the moment. But anyway, this report I found actually from Panyaza Lesufi himself replying to the DA. Actually, I thought it's really interesting to also get to hear from the Gauteng's premier's perspective in how he plans to fight back against this battle that has actually been launched from the AfriForum wing and also the DA wing against what has been called covering up of fraud against the premier. So it says that the Gauteng premier says that the party should stop creating a monster out of him in the public eye. Okay, and so that's from Lesufi. So it says that Panyaza Lesufi has fired back at the DA and overclaims that he's hiding forensic reports implicating officials in corrupt activities in the Department of Social Development. The DA actually claimed to have forensic reports from Bowmans and BDO highlighting gross corruption, mismanagement of funds, and irregular expenditure in the department. So that's what the DA and AfriForum actually found Panyaza Lesufi guilty for, and they really want him to provide answers to these allegations. The report says that, however, Lesufi believes that the DA is on a mission to unseat him and to destabilize the provincial government. And by the way, this is a report from Times Live, all right? So timeslive.co.za has a really interesting analysis on this whole issue. So Panyaza speaking, he says that I'm sure many of you have now witnessed the relentless and desperate campaign that the DA is running to, first of all, unseat me as premier, and second, then to destabilize and choke the Gauteng province, says Lesufi. The tension now between Lesufi and the DA escalated after he excluded the DA from his executive council following the impasse between the two parties at the province. So this was the crux of the problem. And if you remember correctly, Helen Zille really went on a really powerful, really media briefing where she really spoke about the clash between the DA and the ANC in Gauteng. Lesufi still speaking. He says that the DA has vowed to do this since I am deemed to have robbed them of a seat at the Gauteng province table based on the announcement of the government of provincial unity. Okay, so he says that Panyaza still speaking says it must be noted that the DA was given an opportunity to participate in the government of provincial unity but chose not to. Instead, they threw at us what we deemed unreasonable demands and that we could not accept. So that's from the perspective of Panyaza Lesufi, that the DA was making unreasonable demands to them that they just could not accept. And so because of that, the DA had to, leave the government of provincial unity. So now he now says that the DA now is running a campaign to paint him as corrupt, irrational, and an ANC rogue. He also said that instead of the DA to play politics, it should play more of a meaningful role to stop creating a monster out of him in public eye. So he's still speaking. He says that I invite the DA to play a much more meaningful role in creating that ideal, and stop personalizing matters that can be debated in the legislature. They should stop playing in the public gallery to create a monster out of me personally and sway perception in their favor. So that's anyway Panyaza Lesufi's perspective. He says that our people are not stupid. It makes me wonder where we would have been if we had not been been brave enough to resist the DA takeover of Gauteng, a call they so desperately yearn for. My message to the DA is try harder, masters. The slaves have woken up and smelt the coffee. So you see, that's the perspective the Gauteng premier is actually seeing this whole thing. He's seeing it as a perspective, as a master-slave relationship, where it appears that what's happening in Gauteng now is kind of like a slave revolt, and that the DA should try different means of trying to really clamp back at the slave. So this is his perspective, and if I read what he's actually saying here correctly. But anyway, the report goes on to say that the DA has threatened to approach the Auditor General and public prosecutor to investigate why the forensic reports have not been made public. And also, Lesufi says here that he remains unshaken. Earlier this week, he posted screenshots on X claiming that he had released all the reports in 2022 and that he was not premier during the period the reports were said to have been covered. So he's actually still saying to the DA that, you know, that they should try harder, that he released all the reports on December the 12th, 2022, and that was 2 months after he took office. So he took office, he said he released the reports on December the 12th. So he took office October the 12th, I would presume. So in two months after he took office, he released these reports, according to him. And then now he says that, you know, he's really wondering which reports, you know, they are hiding, he is hiding, and the title of those reports. He says, Panyaza still speaking, I have nothing to hide. Every time the SIU concludes an investigation, we release their reports unless the SIU advises otherwise. So anyway, there's also a Twitter post he made here where he says that try harder. I released all the reports of 12th December 2022, 2 months after I took the office. We wish to know which reports exactly are we hiding, name and title of the report. So this is where the battle is actually at the moment. You could see in the last video I made yesterday where Solim Simanga actually held his phone showing that there are whistleblower reports of I think almost over, I don't know what he say, over 100 or so, over 100 reports that actually had not been released. But here, Panyaza Lesufi still maintains that he had released all the reports, you know, that were actually expected from him to have been released 2 months after he took office. So this is where the battle is at the moment, and it's really unfortunate anyway. But it's kind of like it appears that the soul of Gauteng is being fought for now at the moment, and that where it was land, you know, is actually something that probably would really be looking for, especially ahead of the provincial elections that are coming up soon. But anyway, this is where the battle for Gauteng is at the moment, with Helen Zille's speech and Soli and Panyaza Lesufi responding to the DA. So what do you guys think? Let's hear from you. Share your thoughts. What do you think about Helen Zille's speech here and Panyaza Lesufi's rebuttal of this issue? Share your thoughts in the comments.